This video is sponsored by Squarespace. More about them later. Yamper, a Pokemon known for cuteness beyond all else. When looking into those sweet little eyes, rarely does one think they're gazing into the heart of a warrior. But Yampers are a proud, powerful species of Pokemon, and for too long they've been overlooked in favor of other, more genetically gifted Pokemon, but no more. Today's the day that I find out if a single Yamper can defeat Pokemon Sword and become champion of the Pokemon League. As you might have guessed, my Yamper in this playthrough is named after the greatest corgi in the world, Poppy, short for Poppy Seed Muffin. And before we embark on our grueling adventure through the Galar region, the first thing I do is train her up a few levels. Yamper's stats and move pool definitely leave a little bit to be desired, so we'll need to be at a pretty consistent level advantage to keep up with the many threats we'll be facing. In terms of challenge rules and restrictions, we really just have one: no using items in battle. Held items are okay, but X items and potions are a no-go. Makes the game too easy. Now, throughout our journey, Poppy will be facing up against a great variety of opponents, and as a result, there may be times that Poppy gets a little tired and has to take a nap. It's nothing to worry about though, being cute just takes a lot of energy. But either way, I'll be keeping track of those nappies right here. After the first bout of training, Poppy and I have to face down against our rival Hop. He'll be a pretty consistent obstacle over the course of our travels, but for now, he's pretty easy with our solid level advantage. Hop also has Sobble, which makes things a bit easier for my electric type, though for the moment, our only electric type attack is Nuzzle. Adorable, but quite underwhelming even when super effective. With Hop properly trounced, we arrive in the wild area, though it's more or less a beeline to Motostoke to take part in the Gym Challenge's opening ceremony. Look at all these poor suckers, completely unaware of the 1-foot terror that's about to be unleashed on their unsuspecting Pokemon. Poppy is about to rip through these weenies like a chew toy that I literally just bought that. Before truly embarking on the Gym Challenge, I need to fight Hop again, and this time he's more of a problem since we have less of a level advantage and still have to rely on Bite as our primary damage dealer. Since Yamper has an abysmal base speed stat of 25, Poppy gets outsped by almost everything, and by the time Hop's Rookidee comes out, she's due for her second nap of the playthrough. Whoever designed Yamper has clearly never spent any time with corgis because they are deceptively fast little loaves of bread. Exhibit A. Accidental encounters against a powerful Roselia and an even more powerful Palpitoad in the wild area mean that Poppy is up to 4 naps by the time I take another crack at Hop. But with a few more levels and the help of a held Oranberry, Poppy successfully defeats Hop's 3 Pokemon on her second attempt. There's still one more challenge before getting to the first gym leader though, and that's a fight against Bede, a rival with the body of a 10-year-old boy and the haircut of a 65-year-old woman that tries to use expired coupons. He's got all the douchebaggery of Gary, but none of the swagger. I hate this guy. And it's all the more frustrating that his psychic types are a big issue for Poppy. We do have Bite, but it's just not strong enough for a one-shot into any of his Pokemon, especially after Gothita spams Tickle to lower our attack and defense. Poppy can get all the way to Hatena, but even with the help of a Paraflinch combo, we come just shy of the victory. Our second attempt reveals that the situation is even more dire than I originally thought, since Bede's lead Solosis knows Endeavor, which can be used to immediately nuke Poppy's health if we don't get the one-shot. A few attempts later, and Poppy is at level 21, which is enough to knock out Solosis in one shot. Unfortunately, Gothita is still able to get off 3 tickles before going down. And then Hatena manages to confuse Sweet Pop, meaning that once again, Bede comes out victorious. Total jerk, that guy. Welcome to Poppy's shit list, Bede. At level 23 though, it's time for our vengeance. Once again, Bite gets the one-shot on Solosis. This time Gothita only gets off 2 tickles before going down, and without any BS confusions, Hatena falls a few turns later, finally winning us the battle against this cocky jerkwad. Hey Bede, Grimace called and he wants his jacket back. This means that we can finally challenge the very first gym leader of the Galar region, Milo. It takes a few naps to figure out a solid strategy and not get crit, but at level 30, Poppy is ready to deliver some corgi justice into Milo's grass types. Here, electric type moves are not very effective, but she's recently learned Crunch, which makes quick work of Gossiflor. The Himbo farmer immediately Dynamaxes his second and final Pokemon Eldegoss, which means that it's time for truly the greatest thing the world has ever seen.
Dynamax Poppy!
The two Titans trade off max attacks for solid chunks of damage. Eldegoss goes for max overgrowth and Poppy goes for max darkness. On the second turn of Dynamax, I go for a max strike off of a swift to lower Eldegoss's speed and give my not so small Muffin the speed advantage. With that, Poppy's able to take out Eldegoss a few turns later, winning the very first gym badge of the challenge. Poppy, you just won your very first gym badge. Do you have anything to say? Humble as always. In a reverse Kalos, the time between the first two gym leaders is shockingly short, especially compared to the several hours it takes to get to Turf Field. A quick smackdown of Hop's team later, and it's time for Poppy to face off against Nessa and her water types. And unsurprisingly, it is a total breeze. Since Poppy now knows Spark, a fairly decent electric type stab move, we can easily one-shot her Goldeen and Arrokuda, and her Dynamax Dreadnought is simply no match for Dynamax Pop. Max Geyser hurts, but Max Lightning hurts more, and with just 2 hits, Dreadnought explodes in defeat, netting us gym badge number 2. Another Galar Mine means that it's time for another fight against Bede, and with Crunch at our disposal, I figured that Poppy would easily clear through his team of Psychic types. But what I didn't account for is that Bede is a dirty little cheater, because this D-bag manages to confuse Poppy again, forcing her to take another nap. On our next attempt, things go much better. Poppy doesn't get confused by any of Bede's admittedly pretty confusing Pokemon. Like, what on God's green earth is Gothita other than disturbing? And what's Ponyta supposed to be? Weirdest dog I've ever seen. But Poppy pulls through and we're free of Bede for at least a little while. Unfortunately, our trials and tribulations are only just beginning, because next up is the fight against Marnie at the Budu Drop-In, and her electric dark type Morpeko is a real piece of work. She resists both of Poppy's primary attacking moves and is able to outspeed and land stab bites for pretty solid damage, even when we have a decent level advantage. I try this fight several times and never get anywhere close to taking out Morpeko, even with leftovers to keep me healthy. At level 40, when Poppy learns Wild Charge, we're still not doing enough damage to her Angry Gopher. I decide that my best bet is to train up to level 45 so that Poppy learns Play Rough. With that, we're able to hit Marnie's dark types for super effective damage, essentially trivializing the entire battle, though, funny enough, even with a 19 level advantage, Morpeko still outspeeds my little chonk. I wanted to avoid massive level advantages as much as possible during this challenge, but there's just a few obstacles that render that essentially impossible without stupendous luck. Marnie might not have been one of those obstacles, since I probably could have just scoured the wild area for a Play Rough TR without getting to level 45, but the third gym leader Kabu absolutely is. Even in a regular playthrough, his team of 3 fully evolved fire types can be pretty tricky. Both his Ninetales and Arcanine know Will-O-Wisp, and the latter has the ability Intimidate to lower our attack stat. Given that Poppy prefers to fight with her paws instead of her mind, that's a massive problem. By holding a Rossberry, I can avoid 1 burn from Will-O-Wisp, and it also comes with the added benefit of getting Kabu to waste a few turns going for burns instead of doing damage. But in order to take out Ninetales and Arcanine fast enough to not get totally walloped by them, I need to go for an early Dynamax. On our very first attempt, we can get to Arcanine at full HP, but with the burn and the Intimidate attack drop, her max lightning doesn't even do 50%. And by the time Kabu's second Pokemon falls, Poppy's taken a massive chunk of damage and has no way to deal with Kabu's Gigantamax Centiskorch. Mind you, this is with an 18 level advantage. A few naps later, and I decide to tip the scales in my favor by picking up the TR for Thunder from one of the Watt traders in the wild area. Poppy isn't the best special attacker in the world, and Ninetales has more special defense than physical defense, so I make sure to use a physical max lightning to take her out in one shot, after again shrugging off a Will-O-Wisp with a held Rossberry. But with the electric terrain activated and giving a 50% boost to my electric type attacks, the special 140 base power max lightning off of Thunder is enough for the one shot against Arcanine, who actually just misses a Will-O-Wisp. That means that we have 1 turn of Dynamax left as Centiskorch comes out, so I can hit him with a max strike to get the speed advantage, though rather frustratingly, Kabu decides to go for a max Flutterby, which lowers my special attack, meaning that max strike off of Uproar does very little damage. I'm hoping that Poppy can still clutch this one out until she whiffs a Thunder on the very next turn. With G-Max Centiferno coming out for massive damage, this is looking like a wash. Pop is able to fire off a strong Thunder, but then it's time for her to take her 17th nap of the playthrough. Clearly, this isn't working. We're close, but there's just too many things that can go wrong, and Murphy was a pretty insightful dude. I decide to bring Poppy up to level 51 before trying again. The matchups against Kabu's puppies are the same. A physical Max Lightning takes out Ninetales, and a special Max Lightning takes out Arcanine, though this time Poppy does get permanently burned by the second Will-O-Wisp. But as Centiskorch comes out last, this is where the higher level comes into play, because at level 51, Poppy now just barely outspeeds Kabu's Centiskorch, meaning that I can nail him with a massive Max Lightning before he gets off a G-Max Centiferno. But that's my last turn of Dynamax, so now we've got to rely on a 70% accurate Thunder. And with our HP halved, a second G-Max Centiferno, along with Burn and Fire Spin Chip, will probably be enough to do us in. So we've got just one shot. I go for the Thunder, and Poppy connects. She cleanly knocks out Centiskorch, causing him to explode into 1,000 centipieces, finally winning us the 3rd gym badge. And what better way to celebrate a job well done than with some fetchies? I bet some of you thought that was going to be an ad segue, but nope. Just some nice, relaxing fetchies with my corgi pup. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Squarespace is an online platform that helps you build and manage your own website, whether that's an online store for your business or a personal blog for your thoughts. Using their all-in-one platform and customizable templates, it's quick and painless to easily create professional and polished websites. And with their new Fluid Engine design system featuring drag-and-drop technology, it's easier than ever before to fine-tune every single detail of your website. For example, I use Squarespace to launch poppyhg.com, the one and only destination to find curated pictures of my corgi puppy Poppy. Squarespace spokes corgi and a soon-to-be Pokemon champion? Is there anything Poppy can't do? Squarespace also has a ton of other really useful features, like analytic information about the traffic of your website, and Squarespace member areas, which can be used to connect with audiences and create exclusive members-only content. So if you're looking to start a website for your business or hobby, then you should absolutely check out squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your masterpiece of a website, you can use my custom link to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, let's get back to the challenge. Since we're already at level 51, the next chunk of the game is kind of a breeze. A fight against Hop and Stow on side during his depression era is the only thing stopping us from challenging B for the 4th gym badge, but a handful of Play Roughs and Max Starfalls make quick work of her team. Bede tries to ruin a Banksy, so we kick his ass before heading to Balonlea. There, I can get the Eviolite, an item that will grant a 50% boost to Poppy's defenses, but it does come at the expense of consistent recovery from leftovers. Leftovers obviously doesn't give a ton of HP, but a little bit each turn over the course of an entire battle, especially when using Protect, can really start to add up. Speaking of, it'd be great if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's a tiny gesture, but it adds up and really helps me continue doing what I do. And if you want to see more solo runs like this, let me know in the comments down below. Anyways, theoretically, the 5th gym leader Opal has a fairly difficult team. Or should I say, a very difficult team. But thanks to the stat boosts you get throughout the fight by answering questions, Poppy tears through Opal's Pokemon, making sure to stay healthy with leftovers recovery. Even without the boosts though, if you put Poppy in the ring with a wedding cake, the cake's gonna lose that fight 10 out of 10 times. The 9 millionth fight against Hop and his ever-rotating roster of forgettable Pokemon is next, but after leaving a trail of carnage in our wake, it's off to Sirchester, where sadly Poppy's hot streak has to come to an end. The 6th gym leader Gordy, though not particularly difficult, does have a few tricks up his sleeve, one of which is a Shuckle that knows Power Trick. And although Poppy doesn't have amazing offensive stats, they're still miles above Shuckle's, so having to split our attacks is a pretty big nerf. Even though we're still able to get his final Pokemon Colossal all the way down to the red, some Rock Tombs means that he has the speed advantage and can take us out with a Heat Crash. I decide to give Poppy a few more levels before trying again, with the idea that even if Shuckle goes for Power Trick, this might give us just a little bit more power to take out Colossal before going down. But this time, Shuckle just never goes for Power Trick. So Poppy's in full force as she goes to face off against Colossal, meaning that she can get the KO with 2 quad effective Max Quakes, winning us the battle. One by one, the badges are coming together in our little medallion thingy. It's gonna be the perfect frisbee for Poppy when it's all said and done. Another gym badge means that apparently it's time for yet another fight against Hop. And this fight is a massive pain because there's permanent hail, rendering Poppy's leftovers effectively useless. Plus, Hop's gone back to his roots by leading with Dubwool, who spams Growl to lower Poppy's attack, meaning that we simply don't have enough power to take out the rest of Hop's team before needing to take a nap. Prior to my next attempt, I backtrack to Balonlea to pick up the TM for rest. This doesn't really help with the whole Dubwool Growl thing, but it does give me some more reliable recovery in the face of the consistent hail. On the second attempt, Dubwool opts to go for Defense Curl on turn 1, so Poppy only gets Growled once before taking the KO with 2 Thunderbolts. That alone puts her in a much better position to deal with the rest of Hop's team. With Protect, Leftovers, and Dig, I can abuse Hail Chip to make Dig a 3-hit kill on Snorlax, thereby staying relatively healthy. This gives Poppy enough HP to survive a single snipe shot from Inteleon and get the KO with a Thunderbolt in return. Then it's Pincurchin and Corviknight who both hardly threaten the Popstar, especially since we're able to get back to full HP with rest. A few turns later, and victory is ours. A handful of play roughs cut through Marnie's team outside of Spikemuth, but after that, we hit a bit of a snag in our solo run. Turns out, you can't challenge the Spikemuth gym without at least 2 Pokemon on your team, since 2 of the gym trainers engage you in a double battle. This will also be the case in the next gym, which is entirely composed of double battles, so I do have to bring my Grookey, aka Pookie, out of the box for the next chunk of the game. Without Dynamax, Pierce, the 7th gym leader, is pretty tricky, especially since he leads with a Scrafty that has the ability Intimidate and knows the move Sand Attack, making my big brain play of clicking Play Rough significantly less effective. It takes a couple attempts and some naps, but eventually I pin down a strategy to victory. Well, if you count leveling up to level 70 so that Poppy outspeeds and one-shot Scrafty, a strategy. It doesn't even really work though, because she misses her first Play Rough. This lets Pierce hit a massive payback as a result, but that's better than Sand Attack, because with Leftovers and Protect, I can get a huge chunk of that HP back anyways. Play Rough number 2 connects, but still just barely doesn't one-shot, so Poppy has to take a Brick Break. After that though, a Thunderbolt gets the KO. Again, I make sure to recover as much HP as I can by going for Protect between attacks. Just assume that I always do that from here on out. Malamar is second and still outspeeds, so we do have to take a lot of damage from 2 hits before he goes down. That brings out Obstagoon third, and this is where my previous attempts failed. The guessing game of when this nutcase will use Obstruct is pretty infuriating, but by teaching Poppy Charge, I'm able to make it so that if everything goes well, I'm not wasting any turns when he does. And since I do manage to go for a charge on the turn that Obstagoon uses Obstruct, I can nail him with a massive double damage Thunderbolt on the following turn. I get super lucky that we also get the paralysis here, so Poppy can now outspeed and finish off Obstagoon with a second Thunderbolt before taking any more damage. That means that we've got plenty of HP left to deal with Pierce's final Pokemon, Skuntank, who just falls to a Thunderbolt a few turns later. Just like that, Pierce has been defeated, and we've won the 7th gym badge. But that gets us to easily our hardest challenge so far. The final gym leader is Raihan, who has a Sandstorm team that's designed to ruin Poppy's day. Not only is it a double battle, meaning that Poppy will be fighting 2 Pokemon at the same time, the Sandstorm means that she'll be taking chip damage each turn, canceling out any potential leftovers recovery. Raihan also leads with a Flygon who spams Breaking Swipe to lower Poppy's attack stat. Gigalith, on the other hand, gets a special defense boost from the sand, rendering Thunderbolt essentially useless, and Raihan's Sandaconda in the back is ground type, rendering Thunderbolt completely useless. And all of that is before having to deal with his Gigantamax Duraludon, who can obviously deal massive amounts of damage with his max moves. Our very first attempt at level 71 is an absolute disaster. By the time I take out Flygon, Poppy is at -3 attack and sitting at 20 HP. It's clear that my battle plan needs a massive change. I start by heading to the wild area to fish up a new friend for Poppy. I'm hoping that by using a Wishy-Washy as our mandatory second partner, this will bait Raihan into going for Thunder Punch with Flygon on turn 1. If that happens, Poppy, now at level 84, should be able to one-shot Flygon with a Play Rough, but Raihan still just goes for Breaking Swipe, presumably because it's still enough to kill Friend at level 12. I could level up Friend so that they don't go down to a Breaking Swipe and see if he then baits Thunder Punch, but that feels a bit cheap and not in the spirit of this solo run. With that attack drop, this attempt is over. I can't one-shot Flygon, and Poppy takes too much damage to deal with the rest of Raihan's team. I gotta go back to the drawing board. I decide to get the White Herb from the Watchtower Ruins in the wild area, which can be used to restore a stat drop once. With my White Herb equipped and Poppy now at level 90, I head into the fight against Raihan for a third time. But for whatever reason, Flygon now decides to go for a Thunder Punch into Friend, letting me get the KO with Play Rough. This means that White Herb is completely useless, and now Poppy is taking chip from Sandstorm each turn. But one way or another, we're at neutral attack, which means I can execute step 2 of my plan to beat Raihan. By Dynamaxing Poppy, I can get the one-shot into Gigalith with a super effective Max Quake. This also gives me a special defense boost, making Sandaconda's Earth Power hit for much less damage. Duraludon is last, so now I gotta just hope that Poppy can hold tight. He outspeeds and fires off a nasty Gmax depletion, but with Dynamax and our massive level advantage, it doesn't do all that much, and Max Quake retaliates for almost a one-shot. Things are looking good, as that now further reduces the damage from Sandaconda's Earth Power. So, on the next turn, Poppy tanks another Gmax depletion, and then we fire back with a Max Darkness off of Snarl. This is enough to take out Duraludon and lower Sandaconda's special defense, so that we can do more damage with Snarl on the next turn. After taking another chunk from Earth Power, as well as some Sandstorm Chip, Poppy returns to her regular size. She goes for a Snarl for a little over 50%, lowering Sandaconda's special attack. But then Raihan gets a freaking critical hit, meaning that in the 11th hour, he manages to eke out a win, and we're left with a devastating loss. But there's not much we can do except try again. I decide to go back to leftovers on the next attempt, hoping that Flygon will use Thunder Punch again, but he just goes back to Breaking Swipe, ruining this attempt before it even has a chance to get started. With that, in an act of frustration, I decide to just bring Poppy all the way up to level 100 before trying again. I think it still just comes down to whether or not Sandaconda lands a critical hit, but based on how this fight is going against level 40-something Pokemon, there's no way I'm beating this game without getting to level 100 anyways, so I might as well do it now. This time, Flygon decides to use Thunder Punch, so Poppy gets the KO with a Play Rough, just like before. Once Sandaconda comes out, I Dynamax and use a Max Quake to take out Gigalith, as Sandaconda actually just goes for Protect, meaning that we're at a much higher HP by the time Duraludon Gigantamaxes. Even at level 100, we don't outspeed, and Max Quake still isn't a one-shot, so we do have to tank a few hits. Though this is now much easier since Sandaconda seems hell-bent on spamming Protect instead of going for super effective Earth powers. By the time Poppy ends her Dynamax turn, she's still over 50%, and 2 Max Darknesses mean that Sandaconda is at -2 special defense. So, 2 Snarls finish off Sandaconda, at long last winning us the 8th and final gym badge. All we needed was a 52 level advantage. The Frisbee is finally complete. That means we can head to Winden for the final fights of the game, though most of them are pretty simple now that Poppy is at level 100. In the semifinals of the Champion Cup, I face off against Marnie and Hop. They're both squashed like bugs by Dynamax Poppy. Play Roughs and Max Starfalls for Marnie, and then a combination of Thunderbolt, Spark, Max Quake, and Max Lightning into all 5 of Hop's Pokemon. Then, in the finals, we square off against some familiar faces. Bede, now a Fairy-type trainer, just gets overwhelmed by strong physical attacks after using a held White Herb to restore the attack drop from his lead Mawile's Intimidate. Nessa is a Water-type trainer, and we have a level 100 Electric-type Pokemon, so I'll let you figure out how I did that one. Bee is our third opponent, and just like before, she gets completely swept by Play Roughs and Max Starfalls. This pseudo-Elite Four is kind of a joke compared to Raihan. The only one that even has the potential to be nearly as difficult is, ironically, Raihan. But now that we only have to take on his Pokemon one at a time, he's much more manageable. Especially because he's trying to pull off a triple weather team and therefore wastes a ton of time setting up weather instead of doing damage with, super effective earthquakes. Even his G-Max Duraludon wants to set up the sand with Max Rockfall. In the end, Poppy easily comes out on top, and victory is ours. The sequel is never as good as the first, is it? That means that it's time for the final fight of the playthrough. Just kidding, we gotta pretend to be shocked that the obviously evil guy is evil and go clean up his mess. Firefang's digs and a few max moves take care of Chairman Rose's team without Poppy so much as breaking a sweat. Then she saves the world by defeating Eternatus. Zacian and Zamazenta helped out too, but it's mostly Poppy. All in a day's work for sweet poppy seed muffin. We do some fetchies to celebrate because we're gonna need to take a beat here. The final fight against Leon is next, and this guy's team is an absolute nightmare. Because, like a moron, I chose Grookey, this is Leon's team. Aegislash, Dragapult, 2 Pokemon with Earthquake, Cinderace with Pyro Ball, and then of course the Gigantamax Charizard. Not to spend too much time on hypotheticals since shoulda woulda coulda are the last words of a fool, but had I picked Scorbunny as my arbitrary starter, Leon would have a Mr. Rhyme instead of a Seismitoad. The former is a goofy fella that goes down to a single crunch, whereas the latter is a bulky monster with Stab Earthquake, 0 exploitable weaknesses, and the move Toxic. How I'm supposed to beat Seismitoad, let alone Leon's entire team, seems beyond me. As I go into my first attempt, here are my stats. With some EV reducing berries and vitamins, I've given Poppy just enough speed to outspeed Aegislash, and then kept the rest of them spread across HP, attack, defense, and special defense. I wouldn't go around bragging about these stats, but they're gonna have to be enough to take on Leon's 6 Pokemon if we want to become champions of the Galar region. So, let's do it. Leon leads with Aegislash, and right away we have a massive problem. King's Shield makes dealing with Aegislash effectively impossible with my chosen moveset. If I hit into King's Shield even once, Poppy's attack will be lowered, and we won't be able to deal with the rest of Leon's team. I was hoping that Leon might be dumb enough to let me hit him with a dig, but he's not. The first attempt ends about as poorly as it possibly could. We're not even able to beat a single one of Leon's Pokemon. Back against the wall, we gotta come up with a different strategy. The problem is that I need Dig, Play Rough, and Spark to deal with the rest of Leon's team, and Protect is important for Leftovers recovery so that Poppy can have enough HP to deal with 6 Pokemon, only one of which she actually outspeeds. But what if she didn't outspeed Aegislash? That way, Aegislash would turn into his Blade form before Poppy attacked, letting her deal big damage. By lowering her speed EVs and maxing out her attack, Poppy can one-shot Aegislash in Blade form with Spark roughly 40% of the time. But of course, if Aegislash just goes for King's Shield on turn 1 and we hit into it, it's game over and time for another nap. However, after a few attempts of this, I realized that if I use Dig on the turn that Leon uses King's Shield, it'll force him to turn into his Blade form on the following turn, letting us get the one-shot. The issue is that there's really no way to tell whether Leon will go for an attack on turn 1 or just use King's Shield. But given that the King's Shield Dig strategy means that Poppy takes no damage, that's what I start going for. Anytime he doesn't go for King's Shield on turn 1, it's time for a nap. After our 31st nap, I get a solid crack at things. Aegislash goes for King's Shield turn 1, and Poppy takes to the tunnels. This forces him to change into his Blade form on the following turn, just like I expected, setting Popstar up to take the clean KO. That's 1 down, 5 to go. Starting first with Leon's monstrous earthquaking Haxorus. And there's really only one play for me here. I gotta Dynamax. Not only does this double my HP, effectively having the power of Earthquake, it's also the only way to kill Haxorus in one shot. Play Rough never KOs Haxorus, but Max Starfall does. This also has the added benefit of preventing Seismitoad from going for Toxic, since Misty Terrain blocks status effects. Instead, the stupid frog just outspeeds and lands a critical hit Earthquake. Since it is literally impossible to one-shot Seismitoad without a critical hit of our own, this is over. Leftovers recovery gives Poppy just enough HP to survive a second non-critical hit Earthquake, which means that she's able to take out Seismitoad with a second Max Quake, but at such low HP and with the end of her Dynamax, Leon's Cinderace can come in and easily finish off Poppy with a Pyro Ball. Honestly, even without the critical hit Earthquake, I don't think we've got enough HP to survive the face-off against Cinderace. Since I have to Dynamax early to tank the Earthquakes and get the corresponding KOs, I'm not getting back enough HP from leftovers for that to be the right item choice. I think it's time to ditch them and bust out the Eviolite. After Leon opts for a turn 1 Shadow Ball, forcing an immediate 33rd nap, he decides to play ball, and once again Poppy takes the KO on Aegislash with a single dig without taking any damage. This again brings in Haxorus, so it's time for a Dynamax. With the Eviolite equipped, you can see that we take the Earthquake significantly better than before, getting another one-hit knockout with a Max Starfall. Similarly, Seismitoad is now doing far less damage with his Earthquakes. The lack of a critical hit certainly helps as well. By the time we take out the problematic frog, Poppy is sitting at a little below 50%, which with the help of Eviolite should be more than enough to survive a Pyro Ball from the Cinderace that comes out next. The plan is to restore some HP by going for Rest, but I have to first go for a dig to stall out my own Misty terrain. Cinderace ends up missing a Pyro Ball, letting Poppy go for the dig for free. On the next turn, we leave the anthropomorphic rabbit with a sliver of HP, which will cause Leon to heal. Since Cinderace just missed his first Pyro Ball, I take the opportunity to fire off a Spark so that he'll be in range to a single dig post-rest recovery. But Poppy actually ends up getting a crit. That's a bit inconvenient since it means that Cinderace is sitting in Blaze range, but as long as he doesn't crit, we should be okay. We manage to dodge another Pyro Ball, so Rest gets us back to full HP. On the next turn, a Blaze-boosted Pyro Ball finally connects for 105 damage, which means that a critical hit here will take us out. I hold my breath and brace for impact, but like a trooper, Poppy survives with 51 HP. And for those who aren't keeping score, that's Cinderace's 5th and final Pyro Ball, which means Poppy is safe to tank a Quick Attack and rest for a second time, getting back to full HP. After a few turns of tanking Quick Attacks and resisted acrobatics, Poppy wakes up and finishes off Cinderace with a Spark. As Dragapult comes in 5th for Leon, my little Corgi is at almost full HP, and since Leon's Dragapult is fully special and we have 2 special defense boosts from our previous Max Quakes, we easily shrug off a Shadow Ball and take the clean one-hit kill with a Play Rough, leaving Leon with his 6th and final Pokemon, Charizard. With our own Dynamax already used though, this is a classic face-off between David and Goliath. Leon's Gigantamax Charizard fires off a massive Max Overgrowth, but without a crit, Poppy shrugs it off like a light breeze. This lets her hit the Mighty Dragon with a Spark for a massive chunk of super effective damage, but it's not over yet, because Leon instructs Charizard to go for a G-Max Wildfire. A critical hit here, and it's all over. Flames quadruple her size, engulf Poppy, and I'm blinded as the battlefield is covered in white light. I fear the worst, but as my eyes adjust, I see her, tongue out, standing tall, and with one last spark, she takes out Leon's powerful ace Charizard, winning us not just the battle, but the entire run. I don't normally do solo runs, but this is one I've been wanting to do ever since we got Poppy back in 2021. I can't say that Sword and Shield are my favorite Pokemon games, but for now, they're the only ones with Yamper, and therefore the only ones where Poppy can become a Pokemon champion. So, at least they're better than BDSP. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching, it'd be great if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. Or don't, I don't know, but I do know that you should follow me on Twitter and Twitch to keep up with streams of my future ROM hack challenges. You should also subscribe to my highlights channel to get highlights of the challenge I'm currently streaming before it's cut down to a video on the main channel. And you should consider subscribing to my Patreon or becoming a channel member on YouTube, which are the best ways to directly support the channel. The links to everything are in the description below. Stay tuned for more Nuzlocke videos, and until then, remember to always play around the critical hit. Poppy, you just became champion of the Galar region. What do you have to say? So true, bestie. So true.